Hi, after a few of those videos in a row, it's high time I got back to our early Windows series. 5th episode for 1999 and one chock full of gems. So, let's jump straight in. Omikron the Nomad Soul is an action-adventure that was hugely hyped up when it was in development, as not only it was written by now legendary game designer David Cage, the one responsible for some of the most cinematic modern adventure games, but also involved David Bowie. He worked on the soundtrack, creating 10 original songs for it. Nomad Soul was praised upon its release for its graphics, soundtrack, story, character models, reincarnation mechanic, which we'll talk about in a minute, voice acting and combat. But in the same time, criticized for controls, obscenely long load times and numerous gameplay styles, making it feel as if it lacked direction. And since we're on a gameplay, it's played from the third-person perspective for exploration and unarmed combat, and first-person view for armed fighting. While the unarmed fighting is based on strafe, jump, crouch, punch and kick moves, special attacks are included in the game too and performed via a combination of these basic actions. In fact, the game's full of interesting mechanics that few other games in the genre mix together. So there's swimming, which uses oxygen, and same as other demanding activities, it can cause physical exertion. That can be refilled or cured, depends how you wanna look at it, with medikits, food and drinks. If you ever die throughout your adventure in Omikron, and you will, trust me, you are instantly reincarnated in a body of the first person you interacted with, which is an interesting mechanic and may make you think carefully who to preset, so to speak, as your next host. The game is set in the futuristic city Omikron, a metropolis on the planet Feanon. It is built under a huge crystal dome that was constructed to protect the city against the ice age that spread around the planet short after its sun died. The city is divided into 5 boroughs, each of which has its own culture, history and looks, all because their inhabitants are not allowed to freely move between them. At the start of the game, you're asked by the Omikronian police officer Kyle669, a beautifully poetic name, don't you think, to leave your dimension, enter his body and help him investigate series of murders that befallen on the city. It seems that the murders are either so smartly covered up that no one can solve them, or some mysterious force is preventing it from happening. Like literally actively working against cops trying to figure it out. As you go through the game, you'll realize that to solve the mystery, you'll need to leave Officer Kale's body and establish a soul connection with many other inhabitants of the city. And eventually, you'll discover who or what stands behind the crimes, and it will not only surprise you, but also put you in a position of being the only person capable of preventing the inhabitants of the city from going extinct. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer is the only good thing other than John Williams' Duel of the Fates musical composition to ever come out from the second trilogy of Star Wars movies, or the prequel trilogy, if that's what you like to think of it. Well, there's also Jar Jar Binks, which was irrelevant in the movies but spawned thousands of memes, making lives of millions of internet users that tiny bit better. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer is hella fun sci-fi pod racer. It features all the tracks found on Tatooine in the movie and several new ones on other planets too. Same goes for competitors, so all we've seen on the big screen and more. There are 2 single-player modes in Racer on PC, Free Race and Tournament mode. Free Race could very well be called practice, cause in essence that's what it actually is. It allows you to race on any previously unlocked track with any unlocked pod, period. It earns you no money and unlocks no new content. Tournament mode, so the main fare of the game, puts you in the championship competition. So you must complete races to win money, with higher spots naturally rewarding more cash. Money is spent on new and better parts for your pod, on repair droids, to fix the pods in the heat of the action, and on unlocking of tracks and new vehicles. Multiplayer is in the game too, in the form of LAN, but I've never played it, so it's hard for me to judge if there are any technical nuances with it. If it plays anything like single player though, but with opponents, then it's bombastic. As in superior to fantastic, but not as great as remarkable. What made Star Wars Racer a terrific game, one beloved by millions and a Guinness record holder for the best-selling sci-fi racer of all time? Well, simply put, it's fast, it's exciting, it looks amazing, and it's well balanced. It's a perfect sci-fi racer that's not Wipeout. Also, it's much more technical than it may look on the first glance. It uses these afterburner mechanics, which allows you to engage a boost of speed for a little while, and it's entirely up to you for how long are you willing to hold. And there's a lot of strategy to that. Not only when to use it best, but also how long to hold it for. Cause the longer you do, the higher the chance that your engine's temperature will rise too high and it will suffer a critical malfunction and explode, costing you precious seconds. Which may not seem like much, but in as fast of a game as this one, it's a difference between winning and losing. The engines can also be destroyed by colliding with the obstacles, walls and other racers, so keeping a keen eye on their state is a key to success. Well, I'm good driving too, but being fast and careful is the best approach. Racer's presentation and especially its graphics were simply put extraordinary for the time it released in. The locked-off design of the courses and lack of free world to stream assets and render meant that a lot of extra features and fireworks could be added to it, and it just looked striking. It's an amazing looking and playing game to this day, and one you should definitely give a chance if you somehow overlooked it in 1999. Talking about sci-fi racers, Rollcage. Also a rather good one, though entirely unlike the Star Wars racer and the last game in the genre in today's video. So don't worry, it's not gonna be all racers. And while Rollcage was beautiful in its 3D glory, fun to race around when you learned how to play it and introduced many new and interesting features to the genre, it was a commercial flop and failed to secure plenty enough sales to be considered a success. What Rollcage was best known for though, and named after too, was the way that all the cars were built in it. They were suspended between considerably bigger wheels and very, very fast, meaning that other than only on the track, you could also drive on the walls or ceilings of tunnels and other enclosed locations, and that the failing upside down from a jump, crash or whatever did not stop you at all and you just kept going. And if you wonder why such mechanics would be needed in a racer, I'm happy to explain. How about instead of trying to find a narrow path between 3 or 4 opponents racing ahead of you to pass them, you could just get on the wall and overtake them like that, in one sweep acceleration boost. Fun, right? Rollcage also featured destructible environmental objects, and they were not there just to show, but a part of the racing mechanic and often a key for you to win. So if you were to hit a column supporting a building with an opponent just behind you, he or she may instantly get buried in the rubble, giving you a considerable head start over them at the cost of slowing you down a little. But what if you'd like to upset your opponents in a more direct way? Well, there's means to do that too. There's homing missiles that automatically target the cars ahead of you, or even weak parts of destructible structures, tumbling them down without slowing you down. Leader missiles hit the first car on the track regardless where you're currently placing in the race, ice sheets make your opponents lose traction, tire mode slows everyone down but you, the driller goes through nearly everything in its path, and the wormhole, easily the most fun out of all power-ups, lets you jump directly ahead of the car that's in front of you. There are also shields and turbos to pick up, but they work as you expect them to, so I'm not going to be offending you with an explanation of these. Rollcage comes with 20 unique and overfilled with detailed tracks and 3 game modes: Time Attack, Arcade and League. Time Attack naturally lets you try to beat your own times, Arcade is a free race on nearly all of the game's tracks, and League is where the fun's at. It's a season type of a game mode where you go through numerous tracks in succession, as if you were in a racing league. So, if Rollcage was so great, why did it fail commercially, I'm sure you wonder. It's because unlike the aforementioned Star Wars racer, it's not a pick up and race type of a game. You have to really give it time and practice for a little while before you begin performing on a reasonable level. And until you do, it feels more like a bumper car simulator, well, one running at breakneck speeds, but a bumper car simulator nonetheless. So give yourself an hour or two and judge it after that, and not on a base of first appearances. Command & Conquer Tiberian Sun is the first game in Westwood's popular series of real-time strategies and a direct sequel to the first title. After the events of the first Command & Conquer, the Earth is heavily contaminated with alien crystalline, known only as Tiberium, which is spreading at an alarming rate, slowly terraforming the planet into one uninhabitable for the normal human beings. The mineral's arrival causes mutations in fauna and flora, some humans included, making them accustomed to the microclimate that it creates around the pockets it emerges from. The game once again places GDI, so Global Defense Initiative, against the Brotherhood of Nod, and features 2 campaigns, one for each side. GDI sees you trying to figure out solution to the spreading Tiberium and joining forces with mutated humans, so-called the Forgotten, to stop the increasingly more aggressive advances of Nod. Nod's missions, however, focus on exploiting Tiberium for all the possibilities that it offers, technological and militaristic alike, and on destroying the GDI. So, as you can imagine, the campaigns not only feature different buildings, units and objectives, but also entirely different playstyles. GDI focuses on brute force and using large number of units that they can overflow the enemy with, while Nod employs more of a guerrilla approach with precise surprise attacks and hit-and-run tactics. While both campaigns are linear, they include an assortment of side missions too, which while not as important, can actually influence the main missions as well. For instance, destroying the fortifications or an enemy outpost in a side mission will make the following it main one considerably easier to beat. While both sides play entirely different, Tiberian Sun is probably the most balanced out of all games in the series. In time, as you progress through it, both of the sides develop technologies that allow them to use very effective tactics that highlight their strong sides against their opponents, and it's as fun to play as either. Tiberian Sun introduced few more changes to the Command & Conquer formula, namely day and night cycles, special effects for weather, voxel rendering of buildings and units other than the infantry, and most importantly, split of Tiberium into two types, green and blue, with that latter being a more potent and valuable one. Bridges can be rebuilt by engineers now too, and crates found contain single-use bonuses, and all of that adds to the tactical variety. If you're a long-time viewer of this channel, you know that I'm not an RTS player. I honestly don't care much for the genre, but I can appreciate a standout title and even played some of them for a little while. This one's one of those that I enjoyed a little. Panzer General 3D Assault is the third in SSI's series of turn-based wargames. It was based on a new and modern 3D engine that, while technologically more advanced than the earlier 2D solutions, was in its early iteration and, at least in my eyes, looked a bit washed out. It didn't influence the strategic backbone of the game, which was great as usual, and that's just an observation. Nay, opinion on my side. On the flip side though, the 3D engine allowed for full rotation of the map, which was very nice and a welcome addition. Panzer General 3D features 8 new campaigns based on the Western Front, 3 for the German side and 5 for allies, playable as Britain, France and America. The new iteration in the series brought more changes to the strategy classic, and they all made it ultimately a better game. One of them was the experience, which was not accumulated by units anymore and instead by the unit commanders, which allowed for trading or exchange of units while keeping the experience's commander leading them ahead. Promotions that you assign to your commander also increased their action points, which meant that the higher in rank commanders could perform more actions per turn. It's a bit controversial approach, as you could assign those best commanders to your strongest units and then lay series of devastating attacks against your enemy with them. On the other hand though, historically, brilliant strategists and great commanders could make a difference during encounters that could turn the tides of war, so I don't really know what to think about it all. It's perhaps not the best way of showing the superiority of some commanders over others, but also how else would you do that? Give them additional special abilities, or maybe some kind of a damage reduction effect to the units that they control, or increased damage output. What do you think? Since we're on the abilities, commanders get them now, and while they're very specific, when utilized properly, can make a huge impact on a particular combat encounter, like Bomber's commanders getting bonuses when attacking bunkers for instance. It may be situational, but those situations that they touch may mean the difference between your infantry being unable to progress or storming the enemy lines. Front lines that there are none in the game, as all units can move around the entire map and work efficiently anywhere on it. Meaning that sending a singular or 2 units far from main combat areas around the enemy all the way behind the enemy lines and taking their cities in series of quick grabs could cut the particular mission time by nearly half. And finally, the environments on maps are now interactive. So stuff like burning forest for instance can be a factual barrier that your infantry won't be able to cross. Panzer General 3D is a pretty fun and deep strategy, if you like those, especially those focusing on World War II. So if you do, make sure to check it out. But if you're unsure about the genre, it's definitely not the game to start your strategy adventure with. Aliens vs Predator is a first-person shooter based on crossover of Alien and Predator franchises, and it's the first game that I remember having problems running at full speed in high detail, especially whenever particle effects were on the screen. TNT M64 wasn't a powerhouse at all, and this game made it painfully obvious. Come to think of it, I've replaced it a year or so later, but also with nothing super special, just an iterative upgrade I think. I could never afford top-of-the-line hardware, and whenever I was upgrading something I used to invest in new, but still budget options. Anyway, same as in Atari Jaguar's first attempt at the crossover, this new Aliens vs Predator offers 3 separate campaigns, one for each species: Aliens, Predator and Colonial Marines. Each of the campaigns offers different objectives and is designed around particular species' special abilities and weapons. Colonial Marines carry motion detectors, a variety of conventional weapons and wear armor for protection. They also have flares to light up darker areas. Playing as Predator allows you to use his lore weapons, so wrist blades, a smart disc and a cult classic shoulder-mounted cannon. You know, the free laser points one. He also has a cloaking device to become invisible and several different modes of vision to detect different kinds of enemies. He's the most durable out of the three and can survive falls from greater heights than humans can. Alien is the only one with no weapons per se, but it has claws, tail and jaws to attack the enemies and also views the world through a sort of fisheye lens, seeing wider area at once. It has an echolocation for easier movement in dark areas and can detect human and predator pheromones. Aliens can fall from any height and suffer no damage, and are at least twice as fast as the predator. And given its low height when crawling, it can access the most areas of the game world out of all of the species. It can also move on walls and ceilings, same way as if it would be floor. Aliens vs Predator was hella fun. Granted, I've never completed it, as I'm more of a RPG strategy gamer and give these games most of my time. But I played it a lot and enjoyed the heck of it. Particularly playing as the alien, it was something new and unlike any other FPS, being able to run around the ceilings and quietly jump down on unsuspecting marines to kill them silently then and there with nothing but my tail. Or with a cringe comment or a bad joke, such as this one. It was great. What's best about the game though? Well, apparently, as I've never got to sample it myself, was the multiplayer, which supposedly allowed players to pick their favorite species and chase each other around the large levels. It included a co-op survival mode against various new types of enemies too, like robotic aliens or alien-predator hybrids to name a few, which seem like fun. One way or another, Aliens vs Predator is one of the very few good games based on the franchise, and it's well worth experiencing, even if only to sample the 3 completely different single-player campaigns. Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine is a Tomb Raider fight Indiana Jones, and you know what? I like it. I mean, I'm naturally way more fired up for the new one that's coming out this year, especially after having seen the gameplays videos of it, but until that releases, this is the best arcade game about our archaeologist/teacher turned adventurer/treasure hunter. Infernal Machine is a first-person action adventure taking place in 1947. You're naturally playing as Indy, and as the game starts, you're on a retirement from adventuring, sipping tea or whiskey, who am I to tell you what to drink after all, spending your time thinking of long-lost treasures, old bones in ancient burial sites and books filled with unsolved secrets. You know, reliving your past action-packed life in your vivid imagination, digging with a spoon in a ground somewhere for some reason. Soon enough, however, your close friend, former love interest and CIA agent all rolled into one, Miss Sophia Hapgood, tracks you down in a random archaeological dig site and informs you that Soviets are excavating the ruins of Babylon. As it turns out, they're looking for an ancient mythical artifact that is said to be more powerful and deadly than the nuclear weapons, and will give Soviets a huge advantage in the Cold War. So she hires Indy to figure out what exactly is the thing that they're looking for. Given the game's title, it's probably not too difficult to guess that the item in question is the Infernal Machine. It's split into 4 parts, and you'll be seeking them all throughout your adventure. Naturally, as with most Indiana Jones stories, the rest of the plot will be a mix of historical, adventurous and superficial, and will put you on a roller coaster of fun all throughout its 17 levels. Most of them rely on a healthy mixture of puzzling, platforming and combat. Generally speaking, the puzzles are not very demanding, so you should never find yourself scratching your head for too long, and are based around switches and items in most part. The platforming will be aplenty and fun, and involve a lot of climbing, jumping and even using Indy's trademark whip from time to time too. Combat will place you against animal, human and supernatural enemies, mainly using different firearms, whip and a machete. And also, and most importantly, you'll battle with your own video game shortcomings and inner demons too. First, you'll beat with practice and repetition, second, with hopes of getting better and strong medication. Some levels include the use of vehicles such as rafts, jeeps and a minecart, and as you most likely expect, they're a nice change of pace and quite fun to use. All the treasures that you'll collect along the way can be exchanged for extra ammo, and it's good to always make sure to have plenty. Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine is not a perfect game. In fact, it's not even better than few of the Tomb Raiders were. But it's plenty fun in its own right, and even more so if you're a fan of the movies. Oh man, I love Fallout franchise. I even like games that are not very good or not really truly Fallout. Still, you can rest assured, today's pick, Fallout 2, has no issues of that kind. Not only it's exceptional, but also was my most favorite Fallout for a long while, until the release of Fallout New Vegas that is. It starts 8 years after the first game ended and depicts Fallout's vision of alternate reality futuristic west coast of US, aka the Wasteland, and changes that the events of the first game brought to it. And there's a lot of bigger and smaller callbacks to the first game and evolutions to the world brought by the plot of it. In first Fallout, you were looking for a water chip, all to save your vault from dying, in the process influencing the lives of many. In second, you're a descendant of the vault dweller that saved the wasteland in the original, now living in a small and rural village of Arroyo. Or formerly rural, I should say really, as it seems to be going through real tough times. The crops are not growing and the people are beginning to fear starvation. So, your village elder gives you a pat on the back, some weird-ass drug-induced advices, couple of herbs of questionable origin and tells you to leave and not come back without gag. So, Garden of Eden Creation Kit. A small silver suitcase filled with pre-war technological wonders and trickery that's supposedly capable of bringing life back into irradiated wasteland with ease. It is set to terraform and cleanse the land around it, making it fertile and usable again. Whether it's true or not, that's your quest and that's what you're sent out to acquire. So, Christ and as the chosen one, you're kicked out into the danger-filled and full of adventures to be had wasteland. Now, if you played the first game, you know what to expect there and how to take the raiders and rat scorpions filled world of Fallout head on. But if you haven't, let me quickly run you through an obstacle course of what it is. It's a post-apocalyptic role-playing game set in fictional alternate future US after what is now known as the Great War. Yes, very similar to the one we know from our history, but fought over 1 hour using thousands upon thousands of nuclear weapons that devastated and cleansed the entire world. The conflict was brewing for a long while and no one really knows anymore who launched the first nukes. But we know for a fact that neither China nor US or the rest of the world really survived it unscathed. The states are a more or less radioactive rubble, near entirely devoid of modern technology, with some smaller pockets of civilization spread over large and dangerous wastelands, and numerous factions fighting for control of parts of it, all of it, or even drugs or technology only. They're chaotic, they're different, and all seem to be wanting something they won't necessarily will be able to get. And while you have your own aforementioned quest, you'll meet tons of different folks, intelligent or not, half human, half whatever creatures, entire faction of ideologically and fanatically connected folks, and will have plenty more quests to fulfill and have fun doing so too. All the while working towards your main one, cause you're you, and you're not gonna leave your high as a kite elder hanging. Or you might, cause it's Fallout and you can do pretty much whatever you'd like. The game runs in real time through most of it, until you enter combat that is. Then it switches into this magnificently and perfectly crafted turn-based mode that's a pleasure to use and eradicate enemies in. You know, not much is as fun as a ghost rifle shot straight into the deathclaws eye or a .233 pistols round sent for the raider's groin, provided you don't miss cause you know, you only have one life. Oh man, I feel like I could be talking about Fallout 2 for hours. About all the super mutants, ghouls, and all the other weirdos populating it, about the power struggles, remnants of pre-war technologies that, while old as F, are new and nearly magic-like in this simple destroyed world, and about characters, individuals that you'll meet, all having their own plans, agendas and allegiances, but I won't. And all I will tell you here before I jump to our next game is that Fallout 2, same as most other games in the series, is not just a game about the quest you are given, but also one about adventures that you will craft for yourself, making numerous game-changing decisions and seeking interesting side activities in this grim, dark future. Discworld Noir is the third and last point-and-click adventure game based on Terry Pratchett's series of humorous Discworld books, and this time you're not Rincewind, a butt of all wizardry jokes, but Luton, a part of some, mostly non-wizardry jokes. So in a way, it's a promotion. Unlike previous two games, Noir is, well, noir, also grittier, darker and more realistic. It's still fun though, so there's that at least. So yeah, like I said, you're Luton, first and only private investigator in the world of Discworld. And being the only one, and just having started your office, you're not overflowing with work. So, to pay the bills, or whatever else you need to spend the money on, you're seeking out the work like a hawk. Or like first and only PI in a world with no PIs. Fortunately, same as in most Tex Murphy games, work seems to find you, and you are hired by our femme fatale character of Miss Carlotta von Uberwald. She asks you to track down a man named Mandy and gives you very little detail about him. I mean, you're out of work and in dire need of money, so you're not gonna question what you're given. And all you know is that he recently went away to the nation of Tsort and disappeared shortly after coming back home to Ankh-Morpork 2 days ago. As you work on your case, or the case, as it's the first one in Discworld, you'll come across many other characters and they'll hire you for other, also missing person cases, effectively turning you from a first PI with no work into first PI with all the work. As it will turn out, all of the disappearances are connected and you'll have a hell of a case on your hands. One involving numerous murders, a sinister conspiracy and a dark secret cult. Also, not too smart police captain, secret societies, religious fanatics, and a sea worth of sarcasm and bizarre humor. Not necessarily in that order. Discworld Noir is entirely different than the first two games. It's rain-soaked, in dark colors only, and devoid of inventory-based puzzles, instead of banking on detective-like gameplay where you gather the evidence that Luton writes down in his notebook for your convenience, interrogate folks, and use the evidence where appropriate to push the story forward. So, while there's no real inventory and items in War, the clues are sort of like your items, and your notepad is de facto your inventory. I know, sounds stupid when I say it like that, but I've not slept well for months, so you gotta excuse me and try to piece it all together from the randomness and chaos that I extrude here sipping my tea and gathering my scattered thoughts. Or fragmented, as a friend of mine would have called them, I think. Naturally, conversations are king in War, and they hold the key to solving the game's mystery. I'm gonna be honest with you here, I've not played it, so I can't tell you from experience how good it is or isn't. But it's definitely interesting and a game I'm adding to my imaginary and never to be realized to play list. I like all SimCity games. I even enjoyed the mobile one for a little while until I hit the ungrindable paywall that is. Which, you know, in a game where you wait for most things for hours on end, it's not something I'll try to break with money thrown at it. Still, the point stands, I like all of them, with SimCity 2000 holding a special place in my heart as the one I spent most time playing, and SimCity 4 being the best of them all. Well, truth be told, the best SimCity is not even SimCity anymore, but Cities Skylines, but that's beside the point. So, where were we? Between SimCity 2004, there was SimCity 3000, and it too was superb. But for the odd one or two of you that have not heard about the series, let me quickly explain what it is. SimCity is a city building simulator and a city planner's wet dream. Well, I love them all as well, so my dreams ain't dry either. Anyway, the idea here is pretty simple. Everything runs on RCI meter, which stands for residential, commercial and industrial, and represents current needs of your city for particular zones. So you gotta fulfill them by marking land for appropriate development, in the same time making sure that they're supplied in whatever they may need. So water, electricity and connections, be it by road, water or train. Air too, but that's more for outside of the city travels. With all that in place and working, you'll need to keep the citizens safe, happy and educated. So you'll plant firefighting depots, police stations, hospitals, schools and a whole manner of other services, parks, landmarks and the likes. You also manage citywide policies, customizing it to your needs and consider your citizens' requests. Requests that they may come asking for. So you'll need to make sure to keep all the pros and cons of each of the decisions in mind before pulling the trigger. Building a casino, for instance, may bring in tourism and extra cash to your sprawling metropolis, but also raise crime considerably too, lowering overall happiness. So, basically, you'll be responsible for keeping the city growing, prospering and its bank accounts full, balancing the scales as best as you can. In essence, SimCity 3000, same as all others, is a spreadsheet type of a game with some graphics overlaid on top. So, there's dozens of underlying and intertwined mechanics that need to be managed carefully to keep it all running smoothly. And believe it or not, there's not many games as addicting as SimCities are. If you're new to the series, however, and it all sounds like a lot, more to learn than you're willing to do, the game features 7 advisors, each responsible for a different part of your city. So finances, transportation, environmental issues, city planning, safety, health, education and utilities. And while they're perhaps not great at advising a seasoned player who has his/her own routines for building up best cities, newbies will definitely benefit from their advice in the first few games. The new additions to the series that 3000 brought were the waste management, inclusion of farms and agriculture structures, spreading all the zones into 3 distinct densities of low, medium and high, and business deals with outside investors and 4 neighboring cities. So, if you like to use your noggin and enjoy creating efficient and well-working machines, or just building your own city sounds like a lot of fun to you, then SimCity 3000 is a gem unlike many, and one of the best games of the year. Now, isn't 1999 just the best? So many such cool games, or at the very least interesting to reminisce or learn about. I've still quite a few more, so I'm sure that the next episodes will be as packed with bangers. For now though, let me know what you think of today's 10, and I'll see you next time. If you liked the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons below, and maybe share it too, it helps more than you know. If you didn't, then don't naturally. It was fun talking to you as usual, and I'll see you, or more accurately, talk to you very soon.